Hi, Simon Chiselian here, doing some more on the voice of reason. So, a few people have been asking me about whether we're moving into World War III, and quite easily the answer is no. There are three different theatres of war at the present time. You've got to remember that, again, 4 years ago, there were no wars. So, something is happening to create all of these areas of conflict. So first of all, of course, we've got the old enemy, Russia and Ukraine. So are we going to have a third world war with Russia? I don't really think so. I mean, Russia has shown that it can't even take on Ukraine, which it used to own as part of the Soviet Union. So the fact that it can't even go that way is, I think, is quite remarkable just in itself. So what would they do even if they won Ukraine? They would then have to look at places like Poland and Hungary, Romania, Finland, Sweden, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. I mean, and then they're not even talking about Germany, France, and the UK, and of course America. So there's just no way. I mean, Russia has lost probably about a third, may even be more, of its tank corps. So there's absolutely no way. I mean, they're having to import weapons for the first time, I think, in their history from places like North Korea and Iran, who are ideologically, linked to them. So Russia is not going to be taking part in any form of third world war. I mean, even when you look at Iran, Russia has tried to get itself into Africa. It's tried getting itself into Arabia. We've seen Pagosian's people in Syria, but none of this is really going to escalate into any type of third world war. Certainly, from the Russian point of view, I feel that the truth is that Russia it's bleeding now. It's bleeding harshly, both economically. It can't even mobilize its own people at the moment to promulgate the war in Ukraine. So I really don't think it will be able to place itself on any type of war footing. And you've got to remember as well is that the Russian economy is largely based upon its gas supplies, which are usually sold to sometimes its allies, but most of the time it's being sold to its enemies. So all of that would go away. So it would cut off any type of finance that the Russians would have. So let's look at China then. As we know, China keeps beating its breast about Taiwan. Would Taiwan throw us into a third world war? Probably not. A regional war? Possibly. See, the thing is with China is that it's dependent on its energy needs from outside. So as soon as they go to war, all of that stops, which means that China stops, which means that trade stops, which means they don't have any more money. I'm going to do another video on China because I think China is literally going to be a problem child probably up to about 2040. So when you look at Taiwan, Taiwan has probably one of the most robust defenses in the world, and it would be backed up by the US Navy support as well in the form of surface ships and submarines. Now, is that strait of Taiwan, which is the problem for the Chinese, because they would have to move a full army across that piece of sea. But it looks like that the Chinese only have the capacity to move 40,000 troops. Now that's taking into account that none of those ships go down or get sunk or get destroyed. It is likely that any type of conflict in that region would be a massive missile and cyber attack by the Chinese, followed by some form of blockade or indeed of invasion. The fact that the Taiwanese having the advantage of the defensive position, I mean, they've had 40 years to plan for this. So there's only 2 or 3 places that the Chinese could even land on Taiwan, even land their places. And of course, guess what? Those are fortified, they're mined, they're totally geolocated for missiles. I mean, it would be a complete bloodbath. I very much doubt that even 5% of the Chinese force that left mainland China would even get to the beaches, let alone be able to take on Taiwan. Would they be able to disrupt the business of Taiwan? Absolutely. Most of the semiconductors in the world are made in Taiwan. So let's look at Iran. We've seen that Iran's foreign policy is largely using proxy forces to be able to do its bidding, mostly against Israel. Now, Iran would have a chance against Israel, there's no doubt about that. Would they actually survive world war? No, not a chance. See, the problem with Iran is that it's a Shia nation, and most of the other Shia nations have been destroyed along the way. You know, when you look at Iraq and Syria, Lebanon, Libya, I mean, Somalia, I mean, most of those are already gone. So Russia has ideological allies with China and Russia, but they're not going to be of any real use when it comes down to it. We've just seen this second missile barrage, 200 missiles, ballistic missiles this time, not just suicide drones. So they actually meant for something to happen this time. And I thought it was actually quite interesting that Biden said that he expects a proportional response. What does a proportional response mean when someone fires 200 ballistic missiles at you? You know, that's probably about the same amount of ballistic missiles that was fired on London during the Second World War. By the Germans. So proportional would mean 200 ballistic missiles back, logically, wouldn't it? That would be proportional because it would be tit for tat. 200 missiles hit Iran without the ability of them to be neutralized or shot down. That probably ends Iran as a nation. So I think that the proportionality of it is something that actually the West wants anyway, because they know that the failure of the Iran nuclear deal has allowed Iran to pretty much have a nuclear weapon now. They just don't have the means to deliver it, which is going to be another video that I'll do. So what I think is probably going to happen is that Israel will take out strategic air defenses, and they may actually take out the Iranian nuclear facilities as well, which is what everybody actually wants, so that they don't have to deal with Iran anymore in regards to nuclear proliferation. So I think that's probably going to be the case. Israel has actually demonstrated that they have pretty much free reign in Iran. They can fly where they want, they can drop bombs where they want, and I think what we saw with Hamas bombing, where they took out the underground bunker, I think you're going to see something very, very similar to that, but on the nuclear facilities location. So no Third World War, but lots more regional wars. And again, this is another video that I'll do, because the powers that be don't want a Third World War. In the same way as a First or a Second World War, you know, like any war, it has a start, it has a midpoint, and it has an end. The people that are in charge here don't want an end to a war. They want progressive wars all the way through. They want to have us being in a constant state of war, because war makes profits, and that's it. That is just the end of it. War, you know, is basically global politics, and it just means that people's sons and daughters have to die so that those in power can actually feel more powerful and enrich themselves. So that's my thoughts on it. This is Simon Trezelyan, Voice of Reason, out to you.